Throughout history, United States presidents have contributed to providing environmental protection and conservation. Now, many may say that presidents should focus on something more than the environment, but without some of these policies and movements, our lives will be drastically different. Now, our home is Earth, and we have to take care of our home. And whether you support environmental protection or not, I'm sure you can agree after this video that some of the policies and acts these presidents enacted and supported influence your daily lives. So let's start talking about some presidents. First off is Thomas Jefferson. Now, he was president from 1801 to 1809. Now, he was known for authoring of the Declaration of Independence, but many don't know that he was a scientist, inventor, philosopher, and even a botanist. But Thomas Jefferson was also an avid nature respecter and even envisioned a future with a society of small farmers living in harmony with the environment. Now, Jefferson's main contribution to the environment was by sending out Lewis and Clark to explore and research across America, which ultimately increased what we know about American native wildlife and people. Theodore Roosevelt, president from 1901 to 1909. As a wealthy child, Theodore Roosevelt found nature and natural history to study. As the youngest president ever elected at 42 years old, Roosevelt created the first national bird preserve at Pelican Island, Florida. Now, Roosevelt lobbied Congress for wilderness protection and used the Forest Reserve Act of 1891 to create more than 190 million acres of new national forests and created 5 national parks and monuments, and also created 50 wildlife refuges. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, president from 1933 to 1945. As the fifth cousin of Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt inherited a country going through the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, and even powered through World War II. But that didn't stop him from making an impact and environmental contribution. Most noted for his famous initials, FDR contributed to putting people back to work by creating jobs that would improve and protect the landscape, and thus created the Civilian Conservation Corps. Now, on part of this New Deal, more than 2.5 million Americans planted millions of trees, opened summer camps, battled soil erosion, and safeguarded other infrastructure and the environment. Now, if that's not enough, he also created the Soil Conservation Service and the Federal Aid and Wildlife Restoration Act, which was then used to promote long-term productivity and soil health. Now, he really set an example for the future policies and generations to look at the environment and how to really preserve it. Lyndon B. Johnson, president from 1963 to 1969. He was known for his role in the Vietnam War, spearheading civil rights laws and establishing Medicare, Medicaid, and other social programs. Now, Johnson supported urban renewal, beautification, and conservation, and he also signed the Wilderness Act in 1964, which protected more than 9 million acres of federal land. Side note, his wife, Lady Bird Johnson, tirelessly advocated for protection of natural resources, promoted parks, beautification projects, fought to restrict billboards, and worked to protect and plant millions of wildflowers. And the side note, she's famous for saying, "Where the flowers bloom, so does hope." Richard Nixon, president from 1969 to 1974. Rated as one of the country's most disliked leaders, Nixon's biggest issue is that he's most remembered for his involvement in the Watergate scandal. Other than that scandal, he contributed heavily to environmental policies. Now, some of his biggest ones were the Clean Air Act, Coastal Zone and Management Act, Ocean Dumping Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act, Federal Insecticide, Fungicide and Rodenticide Act, and the Toxic Substance Control Act, and also the Safe Drinking Water Act. Now, it's a lot, but his most noticeable contribution is probably the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. Now, this agency was the first of its kind in the United States, and it operates heavily on enforcing the public's health and environmental health. Jimmy Carter, president from 1977 to 1981. Right off the bat, Jimmy Carter presented environmental protection advancements such as creating the Department of Energy in 1977. Now, this would establish a national energy policy that promotes clean and alternative fuels. And he's also famous for installing solar panels on the White House roof, and he implemented corporate average fuel economy standards that mandated fuel-efficient cars. Now, other major laws passed by him were the Soil and Water Conservation Act, the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, and the Endangered American Wilderness Act. Now, he focused on tightening the Clean Air Act and helped set up the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act that would conserve more than 100 million acres and 26 rivers in Alaska. Now, he's world-renowned for his humanitarian work since leaving office through his involvement with the Habitat for Humanity. Leading on to the future, our current president, Barack Obama, has disappointed green leaders on the international scale for not taking a stronger stance in combat towards climate change, and his time is running out in office. Now, whether you support environmental protection or not, these precedents have affected change in our country and even influenced the world to follow suit and better take care of our home as America and home as Earth. Now, actions such as Jefferson's sending of Lewis and Clark, Theodore Roosevelt's Forest Reserve Act that created millions of acres of national forests and parks, FDR's New Deal putting people to work on protecting our landscape, Johnson's expansion on national forests, and the most notable wife in supporting the environment tremendously, Nixon's creation of the EPA to establish regulation and control of the environment, and even Jimmy Carter's great contribution as a humanitarian brought forth change, conservation, and awareness of environmental issues. Now, all of these are just some of the many examples of presidential contributions to the environmental protection in the United States, and each holds significance on spreading more awareness on the environment to national and international levels.